Our exhortation this morning will come from Romans 1:32. Though they know God's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, they not only do them, but give approval to those who practice them. Recently, CNN did an interview out in Moscow, Idaho, which led to some well-known Christian personalities publicly slandering some of our friends out there. And the accusations, of course, were false and easily verifiable. But there were many Christians who celebrated this slander online simply because it confirmed their own biases and assumptions. And this is precisely the danger that Paul is warning us about here. Approving sin in others is itself a sin. It does not matter that we may not commit the same offenses. Giving approval to wickedness is participation in that wickedness. And while it's easy to see this kind of behavior out there in the world and on the internet, we have keen eyes for that, we must not neglect the need to inspect our own lives and consider whether we are guilty of also giving approval to those who practice sins. And one way we do this is by allowing it to happen right in front of us and not saying anything. In other words, giving approval to sin is not just cheering it on. And I think about, there's many examples of this, but I even think about this like in the abortion industry and how, here it seems like even Paul is saying that this is even more wicked. And in the abortion industry, right, we go and we want to minister to women and plead with them, please don't do this. When we stand outside the clinics, and many of us have done this, but then the way we address those who commit this evil as doctors or maybe politicians who support this, it's like leveling it up. Like they may not be the ones committing this sin, but it's even worse. They're the ones sitting by and allowing this to happen and even passing laws for this to happen and welcoming people to come to their presence to commit these sins. We think about that on a large scale, but think about it on a smaller scale. It's not just that we may be cheering it on when somebody sins in front of us, it's that we refuse to call it out. And so, for instance, failing to correct a friend when they gossip or slander another person is a form of complicity. Hey, did you hear what so-and-so did the other day? Or no, well, let me tell you what they did. Can you believe it? And it surprised me because I also heard they did this other thing too. And well, if you're sitting there listening to this, you're giving approval if you allow them to continue, instead of stopping them and saying, hey, let's not talk about others like this. Or hey, rather than talking to me about your problem, why don't you go to the person that you have the issue with and pray with them? Because this is how Jesus wants you to love them. When somebody complains about another person or spreads falsehood and we laugh, nod our heads in agreement, or even just remain silent, we are giving approval rather than correcting in love. And this is wicked. We do not sin in giving correction. We sin when we affirm gossip and slander by doing nothing. As members of TRC, our calling in this is clear. We are to build each other up in righteousness, and that means to lovingly admonish one another when the need arises. And we are called to create a culture where sin is not celebrated or even ignored. True friendship and Christian community are measured not by tolerance of sin, but by the courage and love to call one another to holiness.